Seat 9A looked empty, even though someone was sitting in it. Hoodie dulled to gray. Hair tied loose, no makeup, no name tag. She watched the pressure gauge. Once, then again. The flight crew glanced past her. The businessman scoffed. The student behind whispered, "She's giving off crazy vibes." Then the turbulence hit sharp and sudden. Coffee tilted. Laughter died. She didn't blink, just leaned in and asked, voice soft as falling rain, "Has anyone checked the depressurization valve?" No one answered. A few chuckled, until 3 minutes later the speaker crackled overhead. "If Night Viper 9 is on board, the cockpit is waiting." And just like that, the woman they ignored was the only one they were looking at. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told to sit down when you should have stood up, this story is for you. Hit subscribe. Leave a comment. Let's walk this journey together. She didn't move, not when the man across the aisle muttered, "Probably thinks she's some secret pilot." Not when the steward rolled by, glanced at her bag, and kept going. Not even when the woman in pearls leaned forward and said, "Sweetheart, this isn't your moment. We paid for peace, not drama." Claire just sat there, still, calm, hands resting on that old canvas bag like it held something more than clothes. A loose thread on the corner flicked with the vent air. 3 letters stitched in faded black, NV9. The businessman scoffed again. "She's got no business asking questions," he said. "Let the real crew work." Claire adjusted her glasses. Didn't speak, didn't flinch, but behind those lenses her eyes were scanning something the rest of them couldn't see. And somewhere beneath the hum of the cabin, the plane groaned again. Another jolt hit, harder this time, the kind that makes your seatbelt dig into your stomach. A child cried in row 12. The mother's voice shook. "It's okay, baby. It's just wind." But it wasn't just wind. Overhead lights flickered. Coffee splashed across tray tables. A man dropped his phone and cursed. Claire didn't even shift in her seat. She glanced up at the cabin ceiling, then to the window. Her gaze wasn't panicked. It was calculating. Like she was checking for something only she would recognize. A teenager, 1 row behind, whispered, "Is she—" Smiling. She wasn't, but there was a stillness in her face. Not fear, not arrogance, just control. Tony, the loud guy in row 8, leaned back, grinning. "She probably thinks she's going to fly us to safety." His friend laughed. "Yeah. Hoodie girl versus the jet stream. Good luck." Claire looked straight ahead. The shaking hadn't stopped, but neither had she. A second shudder rolled through the plane. Longer this time. Deeper. The kind that makes people stop pretending everything's fine. Voices rose. Seatbelts clicked. Someone hit the call button 3 times. The flight attendant Cindy hurried down the aisle. Her smile was gone. In its place, a tight jaw and darting eyes. She paused near Claire's row, forced a breath. "Ma'am, I need you to stop talking about pressure. You're scaring people." Claire looked up. Her voice was soft. Even. "I'm not the one shaking the plane." Cindy blinked, thrown off, then turned sharply and kept walking, muttering, "Always one who thinks they know better." Across the aisle, a woman in a pink cardigan leaned in, voice sugary sweet. "Honey, let the crew do their job. We don't need a wannabe hero in row 9. Claire didn't respond, but her hand stayed firm on that old bag. The pink sweater lady gave a tight smile. Her husband, a red-faced man in khakis, nodded in agreement. "Yeah, no offense," he said, eyes flicking down to Claire's worn sneakers, "but you don't exactly look like you belong up front." Another passenger snorted. Someone behind muttered, "She probably snuck in with a standby ticket." The jabs weren't quiet anymore. People were turning, pointing, whispering, no longer pretending to be polite. Claire still said nothing. She reached up, calmly, adjusted her glasses, and turned back to the window. But her fingers, they moved slow, deliberate, like she was counting something in her head. Outside, the clouds were thickening, dark, swirling. The plane gave another low groan, metal shifting against pressure. A little boy 2 rows back started to cry. His mom hugged him tighter, her eyes locked on the blinking seatbelt sign. Claire's gaze didn't leave the window, but her jaw had tightened. Just a little. The tension in the cabin was thicker than the clouds outside. A man in a blue polo stood up red-faced and sweating. He pointed straight at Claire. "You need to stop acting like you know something. You're freaking people out." His wife tugged at his sleeve. He shook her off. "I've got a kid on this flight. I'm not sitting here while some rando in a hoodie plays expert." Claire didn't look at him. Didn't flinch. She turned her head slightly, met his eyes for half a second. Calm. Steady. Then looked back out of the window. The sky was shifting. dark gray now, no brakes. Tony leaned in from the row ahead. "What gonna fix the weather to, hoodie girl?" his buddy laughed. "Bet she thinks the plane's haunted." More chuckles. But Claire's hand tightened on the strap of her bag. Just for a moment, then relaxed again, like a pilot waiting for the second signal. The laughter didn't last long. The plane dropped just a few feet, but fast enough to pull gasps from half the cabin. Someone screamed. Overhead, bins rattled. The fastened seatbelt light blinked harder, like it was warning more than just turbulence. Claire opened her bag. Slow, no rush, like she was reaching for a book on a calm afternoon. Inside a small, dog-eared notebook. She didn't read it, just touched the page, her fingers tracing a line only she could see. Her lips moved barely a whisper. "Trust the echo, Hawthorne?" A voice from the past. Still flying with her. The woman in the pink cardigan saw it. "Oh, great," she said. "She's writing her farewell speech." Her husband chuckled. Or her fantasy novel about flying planes. Claire flipped one page, paused, tucked the notebook back inside, then closed the zipper. Soft click. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere beyond the clouds. Inside, the cabin felt colder. But Claire hadn't moved an inch from her seat. Then came the jolt no one laughed off, the kind that grabs your stomach and doesn't let go. The plane dipped hard to the left. People screamed. One man dropped to his knees in the aisle. Oxygen masks dropped in the back. The buzz of worry turned to full-blown panic. And that's when the intercom stuttered to life. Voice sharp cracking through static. "Calling any passenger with advanced navigation experience if Night Viper 9 is on board the cockpit is waiting." It didn't make sense. Not at first. People blinked, looked around. Some thought it was a mistake. Some thought it was a joke. Claire slowly closed her eyes. Just once, as if confirming something only she knew was coming. Cindy, the flight attendant, froze mid-aisle. She turned, stared at Claire. Like, suddenly, that hoodie didn't look so harmless anymore. It started slow. One man turned around. Then two more. Then the woman in the pink cardigan. All of them looking at Claire. She hadn't moved. Just sat there, hands folded neatly over her bag. Cindy stepped closer. "You said something earlier about pressure dropping," she asked, voice tight, "before we even had a reading." "How did you know?" Claire looked up. Her voice was steady, barely above a whisper. It wasn't a guess. That's when Madeline, the woman in pearls, leaned out from row 7. "Excuse me," she snapped. "You're trusting her. She looks like she can't even afford this flight." Laughter followed, but it wasn't kind. It was sharp, nervous. Claire stood, not fast, not loud. She just rose to her feet, and for the first time, the plane felt very, very quiet. Claire didn't raise her voice, didn't puff her chest, didn't ask for permission. She simply stood, and in doing so, she changed the air in the room. The laughter faded. Even Tony shifted in his seat. Cindy opened her mouth, then closed it again. Something in Claire's eyes made her forget whatever she was about to say. Then Claire spoke. Clear, calm, like she'd said it before. "You've already lost 2 minutes to judgment. That's long enough to lose a wing." The man in the polo froze. The woman in pearls blinked, speechless. Claire didn't wait. She turned, stepped into the aisle, and headed toward the front of the plane. With each step, phones rose. Whispers followed, and the only sound louder than her footsteps was the silence that followed them. Claire walked, not fast, not slow, just steady, like she knew exactly how far it was to the cockpit door. She didn't look left or right, but the whole cabin followed her. Then a voice cut across the aisle. "Hold on!" It was a man in a tailored suit, 50-ish hair, slicked back gold watch catching the cabin lights. He stepped into the aisle, blocked her path. "You can't be serious," he said to Cindy. "You're letting her in there." Claire stopped. He didn't budge. "She looks homeless," he added louder. "You want to hand over a jet to some ghost with a backpack?" Behind her, a phone dinged. Someone started recording. Claire didn't raise a hand, didn't explain a thing. She just looked at him. You just wasted another 2 minutes and walked right past. He didn't move, but neither did she. Claire paused her bag, brushing his arm. No anger, no rush, just presence. "You lost 2 minutes," she repeated. "That's long enough to lose a wing." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Like the words he had rehearsed no longer fit the room. Behind them, the flight swayed again. Not enough to panic, just enough to remind everyone they were still in the sky. Claire stepped forward. The co-pilot was already at the cockpit door, eyes sharp, jaw tight. He looked at her like someone seeing a shadow from an old life. "Ma'am," he said, "have you studied aviation before?" Claire didn't blink. "Altimeter's drifting 4 degrees off. You know that." He stared, then nodded once, like a puzzle piece just clicked into place. "Come with me." Claire stepped into the cockpit. The door clicked shut behind her soft final. The captain turned. Older, worn, sweat beading at his temple, he didn't hide the confusion in his eyes. He opened his mouth probably to ask who she was, but Claire didn't wait for the question. "Viper 9, she said quietly, requesting co-navigation clearance. The room changed. The captain froze. His hand stopped mid-air hovering above a switch. "Only one person ever used that call sign," he whispered. Claire didn't answer. She was already in the seat, headset on, bag at her feet, fingers moving with quiet speed like they'd done this 1,000 times before. She didn't need to prove anything. She just adjusted the controls like they were part of her, and the captain... He didn't stop her. He watched. Claire didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her hands were already moving across dials, toggles, screens. Not in a rush, not showy, just steady, certain. The co-pilot watched her fingers sweep past a system buried in dust. "Echo wave?" he asked, surprised. "No one uses that anymore." Claire nodded. "Because it doesn't lie." She flipped a switch. A screen came to life, grainy but clear. The old terrain map blinked up like an old friend returning from the cold. The captain leaned in, watching her every move. He didn't interrupt. He just whispered, "You're handling this like it's a combat zone." Claire didn't respond. But her grip on the side stick said enough. Outside, thunder cracked again. Closer this time. Inside, the only storm was between the people watching her, and the silence that followed every move she made. Back in the cabin, it took a moment to notice the plane had stopped rattling. No sudden dips, no jolts. The air was still thin, but the silence said something had shifted. People looked around. First confused, then cautious. Someone whispered, "Is she flying this thing?" A businessman near the front folded his arms. "This is insane," he muttered. "No one even knows who she is." The woman in pearls crossed her legs tight. She probably watched a documentary once and got lucky. A mom in row 14 holding her toddler close didn't say anything, but her eyes stayed on the cockpit door. Not afraid, just focused. She leaned toward the woman next to her and asked softly, "What if she's the only one who can save us?" The woman frowned. "Don't be naive." But her voice wasn't so certain anymore. A young man in a hoodie leaned over his tray table, typing fast, eyes wide. He whispered to the girl next to him, "There's a forum post from a few years back. Night Viper 9, Oregon, Air Force. It's her." She stared at his screen, then at the cockpit door. "She's real," he nodded, still scrolling. "She vanished after a mission. No interviews, no medal, just gone." In row 2, the security officer crossed his arms. "Tight. I don't care who she was. Passengers don't fly planes." He stood to speak, but the captain's voice broke through the speaker calm and steady. "This is your captain. We are under co-navigation. Please remain seated." The cabin went still. One sentence. That's all it took. No name, no backstory. Just the quiet truth the woman they mocked was flying them home. Claire didn't speak. Her voice wasn't on the intercom. Her face wasn't on a screen. She was just there inside the cockpit working. Screens flickered, dials shifted. The storm outside growled, but her hands didn't flinch. In the back, the pink sweater woman leaned into her husband. "They're really letting her fly." He shrugged. "Looks like it. No jokes, no smirks, just quiet." The teenage girl from earlier leaned toward the aisle. "What if she's the reason we're still in the air?" No one answered. They were listening now. To the hum of the engines, to the creak of the fuselage, to the silence where panic used to live. In row 14, the mom kissed her toddler's head. The boy held his toy plane tight and whispered, "She's flying us." The mom smiled just a little. "She is baby. She really is." The intercom clicked. No chime, no warning, just Claire's voice, low, even calm. "This is passenger 9A. Prepare for a controlled descent. Remain seated." That was it. No explanation, no title, no apology, just instruction. And somehow it held more authority than every flight announcement that came before it. People sat straighter. Bags were tucked in. Seatbelts rechecked without a word. Even the security officer sat back down. The plane tilted slightly just enough to feel, but it was smooth, deliberate. Tony from row 8 stared at the ceiling. Didn't say a thing. The woman in pearls crossed her arms again, but this time, didn't speak. In the silence, the captain's voice followed quiet, almost reverent. "This is your captain. I'm signing off on her actions. She is taking over." No one clapped, but no one moved. Claire didn't speak again. She didn't need to. She adjusted a dial, checked a reading, toggled a switch most pilots hadn't touched in years. The captain watched her fingers not fast, but exact, like muscle memory from another life. Outside, the storm hadn't cleared, but inside, numbers began to make sense. Altitude steady, pitch corrected, pressure balancing. The co-pilot glanced over. "How'd you know to do that?" Claire didn't answer. She just turned a knob precisely a quarter turn, then rested her hands on the side controls. For a moment, no one moved. A faint scar along her wrist caught the light, then disappeared under her sleeve. Behind her, the young flight attendant stood quietly, clipboard in hand. Voice small. "The passengers, they're asking who you are." Claire didn't look up. Tell them to buckle up and stay calm, that was all. The cabin stayed quiet. Not because they understood what was happening, but because she clearly did. Claire's voice never came back on the intercom, but her hands never stopped moving. One control, one correction, one steady choice after another. In row 5, the man in the suit leaned over to Tony. "Who is she?" Tony didn't answer, didn't joke, didn't even look up. The woman in the pink cardigan pulled her sweater tighter, her eyes fixed on the cockpit door like it might open again and she could say something different this time. In row 14, the little boy held his toy plane against the window. It wobbled in his hand, but it stayed up. His mom smiled, soft, tired, but real. Still flying, she whispered, and outside the glass for the first time in hours the clouds began to break. The captain's voice returned. "We're stable, preparing for landing in 20 minutes. The words were clear, but they landed soft, like even he knew. This wasn't his moment. A wave of relief passed through the cabin. Tears, laughter, quiet sobs into folded hands, but still no one clapped. They were watching the cockpit door, waiting, wondering. In row 6, the older man with the patched-up jacket leaned forward. He picked up the canvas bag Claire had left behind in her seat. Inside a notebook, edges curled, cover torn. He opened it slowly, not to steal, but to understand. Page after page, not scribbles, not stories. Flight paths, coordinates, old military markings. He closed it gently like something sacred. "This isn't just anyone," he said. "She's flown through hell before, and no one argued." The landing was smooth. Not textbook, not flashy, just safe, like someone guiding something home, not proving a point. The wheels touched down. Brakes eased. Engines slowed to a steady hum. And still, Claire said nothing. The cockpit door stayed closed. She didn't look out, didn't wave. She removed the headset, stood up, picked up her bag like it weighed nothing, even though everyone now knew it carried something more. Passengers filed out in waves, some still shaken, some already texting, some just whispering. Did that really happen? Claire was one of the last to leave. No security escort, no captain's handshake. She walked down the jet bridge alone. The air outside was quiet. Ground crew barely noticed her, but one man turned, watched her fade into the crowd, and murmured to himself, "Who the hell was that?" By the time passengers reached the terminal, the story had already started walking ahead of them. Someone had posted a blurry photo Claire inside the cockpit, hands on the controls. No name, no tag, just a caption. "This woman saved 216 people. We don't even know her name." It spread like wind. At the airline's press conference later that afternoon, a reporter stood up. Voice sharp. "Passengers say a woman from row 9 flew the plane. Is that true?" The spokesperson blinked. Smiled, the kind of smile that hides too much. "We're grateful for a safe landing," he said. "Our crew handled an unexpected event with professionalism." Another reporter pressed. "But who was she?" He hesitated. "Just a lucky passenger who stepped up." Back at the airport, Claire had already crossed 3 terminals. No rush, no attention. Just a woman with a bag and a story no one could stop retelling. She was almost to the exit when someone called out, "Wait, miss, can I just see your face?" It was a young woman, maybe a college student. Phone in hand, voice out of breath. Claire paused. For a heartbeat, her back still to the girl. bag slung over her shoulder like it always had been. She turned, not fully, just enough for the girl to see her eyes. Calm, steady, somehow older than the sky she had just flown through. The girl lifted her phone, hesitating. Claire didn't smile, didn't pose. She just said softly, "They don't need my face. They're alive. That's enough." Then she turned again and disappeared into the crowd. No applause, no photo, no last word, only the memory of someone who never needed the world to notice just to land safely. In the airport lounge, a few passengers gathered, not talking loudly, not bragging, just sitting. The woman in the pink cardigan was there, arms crossed, eyes avoiding everyone else. "I still don't buy it," she said. "Anyone can get lucky." The older man from row 6 laid the notebook on the table, the one Claire left behind. He opened it. Slow, not to expose, just to understand. Flight logs, hand-drawn maps, checklists written in neat, efficient lines. Some dated years back, others classified. He ran a finger along a corner crease. "This isn't luck," he said. "This is someone who's flown through things we'll never see." The group went quiet. No one challenged him. Even the pink sweater woman looked down. The notebook stayed open as if it was still flying even after she was gone. A week later, her story was everywhere. Clips from passengers' phones, blurry shots of Claire in the cockpit headset on hands moving. The internet lit up with questions. Who is she? Why was she flying? Is she military? Rogue pilot, hero, comment sections filled with guesses, arguments, admiration. Some called her a hoax. Some called her a ghost. Most just wanted to know her name. The airline stayed quiet, still calling her a lucky passenger. Reporters found the executive from the flight. He dodged questions outside his office. "I didn't know," he kept repeating. "Okay, I didn't know, but Claire..." Claire wasn't watching. She was in a small garage outside town, hands covered in motor oil, working on an old engine like nothing had happened. No TV, no signal, just the quiet hum of work and the memory of a plane that still made it home. The medal ceremony was quiet, small, no grand stage, just a flag, a podium, and a camera. The president stepped forward, voice steady, face somber. "We're here to honor those who act, when no one else will." He paused, looked straight into the lens. Night Viper. 9. If you're watching, this country still owes you its gratitude. The room stayed silent. No one moved. As if she might walk in right then, hands in her hoodie pocket. She didn't. A news anchor replayed the clip that night, and the night after, and again. But Claire was in that same garage wrench in hand, elbow deep in rust. The radio crackled, switched to news for a second. She didn't even look up. She just tightened one last bolt, wiped her hands clean, and said softly, "Sounds like quite a story." Months passed. The news moved on. New stories, new names. Claire's faded from headlines, but not from memory. Tony from row 8 quit his sales job, started teaching aeronautics at a community college. The pink cardigan woman, she began volunteering at the VA hospital every Thursday. The mom from row 14 wrote a children's book. It was called The Quiet Sky. The last page simply read, "Dedicated to Seat 9A." Even the executive, the one who laughed first, showed up at flight training 2 months later. No cameras, no statements, just a middle-aged man trying to learn what he once mocked. They didn't all believe in heroes before. They do now, not because Claire asked them to, she never said a word, but because when 216 lives were held in silence, she was the one who broke none and saved them all. One evening at a dusty roadside diner in Arizona, a waitress leaned over the counter and said, "You don't talk much, huh?" The woman in the corner booth looked up, gray hoodie, worn jeans, hair tied back as always. She smiled barely. Talking's never been the important part. The waitress poured coffee, paused. "You military?" The woman didn't answer. She just tapped the mug twice real light, and looked out the window toward the fading sky. Out back, an old twin prop sat half covered in a tarp. No wings. But the paint still read Echo Wave 6. The woman paid in cash, left no name, just a folded napkin with coordinates scribbled in faded ink. And when she walked out, the wind picked up just enough to rattle the door like a passing plane overhead. Some folks say she never existed. Just a ghost in a hoodie. A story made up somewhere between fear and hope. But the people on Flight 219, they know. They saw her hands move when no one else dared. They felt the plane steady under her silence. They watched the storm break inside and out. Claire Hawthorne never gave a speech, never stayed for a thank you, never asked for a nameplate or medal. She gave something else. She reminded us that sometimes the person you overlook, the one you roll your eyes at, the one who sits quiet and keeps to herself, might be the only one who saves you when everything goes dark. Seat 9A was never empty. It was just waiting. And now, every time someone boards a plane, they glance that way. Just to see. Just in case. If you've ever been overlooked or silenced in a room full of noise, comment was Claire too. And if you believe silence doesn't mean weakness, share this with someone who needs to hear it.